My name is Lance Best in Auckland, New Zealand. This morning I'm with Dina Blanco, also Ioannou.
Yeah, Ioannou, exactly. Don't worry, everyone gets the second name. It's always a bit of a tongue twister.
So, transformational speaker, educator, teacher, trainer and coach, and co-author and founder of Lessons in Self.
That's right, yeah, exactly.
Manchester, London. I was born in London too, by the way. So Manchester, London, Greece and Switzerland. Just to explain a little bit. I knew you were Greek, your name was. I knew that. So, but because I do my research, I know a little bit more about you, but I'd like to hear from you about it.
Well, okay, well all right. So basically my roots are Greek Cypriot. So my parents both originate from Cyprus. And as you know, Cyprus was also a British colony back in the day. So hence the reason, you know, Cyprus was part of the colony, and my parents were both British citizens, as we know. And they moved to London. My mum was about 12 and my dad was sort of like 16. They went to London. So London's my birthplace, my hometown. I was born in London. I grew up in London, went to school in London, etc. Very long story short, because my life story is pretty long and exciting, though I have to say, I ended up in Cyprus because although we would sort of go over to Cyprus on holidays, as you do as a child with my family, I actually ended up in Cyprus, got married the first time, and that's the connection with Cyprus in terms of I lived there for about 10, 12 years. I was married, and then just decided, well, this marriage business isn't really for me. I want to do more with my life. And I wanted to do so much more. So I ended up back in London. And the connection with then Switzerland is, as I went back to London, I did a teacher training diploma, and then found myself meeting my then second husband. So ended up in Switzerland. And the connection with Manchester is because then I studied at the University of Manchester, where I did an English language teaching degree. So both the bachelor's and master's. And that's kind of the connection with Manchester. And now I have been living in Switzerland for about 18 years, believe it or not. So I've been here quite a long time.
Oh, Switzerland's beautiful. I've been there a few times. I've been skiing there. I've been to Cyprus.
Oh, wow.
I had to go and have a look at the guards between Cyprus and Turkey because they're still there on the boundary, yeah. So I drove all the way around the Greek side of Cyprus. And as I said, I was born in London. So
whereabouts in London were you born, Lance?
The Angel Islington.
Are you kidding me? So am I. Whereabouts? Oh my God!
The actual hospital was in Tufnell Green.
Wait, so what, you're born in Islington then? Because basically that's where I'm from. I'm from North London, Islington, Holloway Road, Hornsey Road.
I was only there until about 2 years old, so.
Oh, right. Okay, lovely. So there we go. We've got a connection already there with Islington. That's amazing.
A very good friend of mine, he's not around anymore, but his name was Andy Christo from in Brighton, and he was a Greek Cypriot, and he was a very good friend of mine. So.
There we go. So it's a very small world, isn't it?
Small world. Tell me about Dina when she was a child between 1 and 6, a time when she was in her prime.
Oh, okay. Not that, well, that I remember. I know that I was quite not a dreamy child. I was always very in my own little world, I would like to sort of say. I was very creative. I'm still a very creative person, but I was also very creative as a child, and my imagination would just totally run away with me. You know, I just used to love it. I just could place myself in my imaginary world, and I would live and breathe it, and it was just so real for me. So I always remember that. I mean, it wasn't just, I think for me, because we grew up in a house just off Hornsey Road, and it was a house, we were like 3 families, and we shared 1 bathroom and 1 toilet. So we only had 2 rooms. And what I remember, there's certain things that I remember, is because I always felt I wanted bigger and better. I just felt that there was so much more, and it wasn't just living in this 2-room house. I remember that my father said, right, we're going to, I found a house. So I went to school that day telling all my friends that we'd actually have a house, that Dad's found a house with a garden. That was always my dream, a house with a garden. But it wasn't to be. We just crossed over the road and ended up in a council estate. There we go. Not that I'm complaining, because that's always part of, you know, my roots and where I come from. But nonetheless, I have to say, I believe I was a happy child. I was a happy child. I always have been happy. But during my childhood, I was quite a happy child. And like I said, very much in my own world, very much connected on many different levels, I would like to say. Yeah.
Oh, I can remember at 10 years old going to a friend's house for his birthday, and he lived in a council house. And I went home and I told my parents, why can't we be like them? They're happy. Literally.
Really?
I won't say what happened to me, but I'd only just come out of boarding school. So yeah, it was.
Oh, right, okay.
My observation was that the mother was so wonderful. She put on this big party, and they lived in a council house, and I lived in middle class, but I'd rather live there any day of the week. So,
yeah. Do you know what? I mean, like I said, living there, growing up in the council estate, and I guess growing up in such a that's what I think I'm blessed with, is the fact that we did grow up in a very multicultural, let's say, society. But I guess like where we grew up in Islington and on the council estate, we were from so many different backgrounds. However, saying that, which is really a bit weird, I guess, is that my father, which hats off to him, he wasn't sort of like a person who wanted us to grow up just in the Greek community, because as you know, London has different quarters, like many big cities, and we also have like a Greek quarter. But I didn't grow up in the Greek quarter, so it was very much, I grew up with so many different other people. I didn't have a lot of Greek friends, and that was also, as I started to grow up, that caused a lot of friction, because yes, there was that Greek side to me. There were certain ways that girls behaved, you know, all that comes into it, being grown up in a very strict, I would say, Greek secret sort of family upbringing. But at the same time, it was difficult for me. That's when things started to change. So if you say 1 to 6 and suddenly you become aware that, not that I've never felt different, but suddenly it gets imposed on you that you're not the same as other kids because you happen to be Greek secret. You know, that was that was really difficult. And that's when things really started to change for me, I would say. But I think I'm blessed and I'm grateful for my dad that he didn't sort of want us to grow up just being amongst Greek people. He wanted us to see so many other different, and I'm blessed that happened. And it was great growing up in the council estate. You know, it really was fabulous. Thank God we never had the best clothes, I have to say. That's always something I remember. It was always, you know, I think a lot of people with second-hand clothes. Our furniture, most of our furniture were just people that were going to throw out their furniture, and they'd come and say to my mum, would you like our sofa? And Mum was like, okay, yeah, we'll have the sofa. So like the sitting room was like an accumulation of everybody's thrown away furniture. So it was just a mishmash of different things. But saying that, my mum is an amazing cook. She remains to this day. We always had good food on the table. And we also had enough of food to invite people that were, I guess, that didn't have so much. So we had quite a lot, really, compared to still a lot of people that were, I don't even use the word poorer than us, but we'd always have kids coming round as well on Christmas and eating with us. So that was always really nice.
Did you cook Greek food?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Greek food is really crazy because, like, with my mum, because again, growing up with the British influence, because that was it, there was always these different cultures coming into our lives. So we were very much, it's a strange word, but I hear it a lot in Switzerland, so please allow me to use it here as well. We were integrated. They use that a lot in Switzerland. So we were integrated. We talk about integration in Switzerland. So we were integrated. In other words, we were very much part of the British, let's say, culture. I mean, my dad, he was like morning calf man, coffee, go to work. He had his own garage. He'll buy the sun. He was that sort of bloke. It's that sort of man. So, but at the same time, we were influenced very much by where we were growing up, and that was great. And I think the best thing was always Christmas was, oh gosh, it was just crazy. Like Christmas would be all the Greeks' foods, and that would have also turkey and, so all the sort of like English
turkey.
Really typical British English, like Christmas dinner with a moussaka thrown in, or with a, do you know what I mean?
Coffees. Do you have the Greek coffee? Yeah.
That was my speciality. That was very much, but that was always something I remember when my dad used to come home from work. He would say one word, café. That was my word, that I would get up and make him a Greek coffee. So I actually learned to do that from a very young age. It was just something, when he came home from work, it was always a Greek coffee. Yeah.
Now, I just wanted to share some observations. I couldn't find a lot about you. I could watch you a couple of times. I just want to share some observations. I don't know if I'm allowed to say some of these things these days, but because you know what the world's like. But you have a very great, big, infectious smile. Very wide open, clear eyes.
Thank you.
I mean, it's just, you can't help it when you smile. It's a big smile. All right. Now, you also have aware eyes. And part of me thinks you could easily flare up when you want to. I also sense a measure of some kind of control. You're a person that seems to me to like to be in control.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's up to you. You don't have to agree with me, but I just, how do you feel when I say that?
Do you know what? I would have to agree with you on the smile. That's it. I think the smile, the eyes. I'm a person, you can very much read me from my eyes.
You're very strong too, by the way. You're very
exactly. This is it. I think this is it with me. I am the sort of person, like they say, the eyes are the window to the soul, and you can very much read into me. And so I don't mess around. If I'm feeling, I was going to use like the P word, but if I'm feeling annoyed, it will come out. If I'm feeling happy, it's going to come out. It will come out in my eyes. My eyes do not lie. Yeah. And the smile, it's really funny because I used to use the smile, especially in my teen years. The smile was always for me a bit of a protection of what was really going on inside. Although I would say it's not that now. Now it is more free because it really is a reflection of what is going on inside. And inside, I would definitely say there's so much more positivity going on inside. So the smile reflects that. It's what comes out. Yes, I would definitely agree with you. At the same time, and not the same time, but there are times where I can flare up. But I have to say, since my last burnout, which was in 2012. That's the time for me. I used that time to very much work on myself, because I was quite short-tempered, going back a few years. So I learned how to sort of control that. There are times when I feel that, sometimes I say it's the Greek in me, it's the Greek blood in me. I do have
nature, yeah. I mean,
yeah, I am kind of, and that sometimes that doesn't get me in trouble, because I'm also a very direct person, in the sense that I will say kind of what's on my mind. Take after my mum on that, because she's also like that. But in some cultures, it doesn't go down very well. So, especially because I'm quite passionate. So when I talk, it all comes out. It's real. At least that's what I'd like to think. And I'm me. And this is really important, because this all came about when like I said, from my last burnout. That was a time when I finally found myself in that sort of situation when I said, well, Dina, unless you start to learn to completely and love yourself unconditionally, and you start working on all the things that you need to be looking at and working at, you're constantly going to find yourself back to where you were. So I did a lot of work on myself, and it took me a really long time to absolutely love myself. Sounds a bit mad now, like when I think about it.
You've done well. It's just.
But no, seriously, I look in the mirror now, and before I couldn't really look in the mirror, and I did a lot of mirror work. And believe it or not, and I remember the first time when I really started to look at myself. This is my healing process. And I realized, my God, at that time, those smiles, and suddenly all that turmoil, I would describe it as pain and turmoil, did come up, but out of it came this, like a rebirth. That's what I would like to call it. And as for the control, do you know what? That is something that is interesting that you should mention that, because again, prior to, I keep saying, the burnout, I was very much a control freak. I was a bit OCD as well, but that's all kind of formed. So this is it. But I think that control, it's interesting that you mentioned that. It was, you know what, growing up, like I said, in my teen years, it was very difficult. My parents were very strict. And as a Greek Cypriot woman, I didn't have the same freedoms as, let's say, my brother. And as a lot of my friends, it was very, very strict. There were certain things we need to conform to, etc. And control, it's interesting that you mentioned control. And as I like to be quite open here, there were certain aspects in my life that I felt, because I felt everybody else was trying to control me, told me what to do, told me how I should behave. And I am very much a free spirit, but free spirits don't go down very well in the Greek Cypriot community. So basically I was branded the black sheep of the family. I was kind of one of those, I just, especially, but and so my life was controlled continuously. And then I found that I could suddenly, when I did break free, I guess control was, I was kind of very controlling amongst other people. So in my relationships, I would say, with myself. So there was a phase that I did have an eating disorder for a few years. But that was all about the control, because I felt otherwise I guess you get so used to being controlled. I was scared to let go of that control. Mm. And so one way of perhaps being able to, it sounds weird now when I think about it, but was to control what was happening within me and around me was through, I guess the eating disorder, being a bit OCD. I was like crazy. Like there was things had to be in a certain way. I feel sorry for my second and probably my first and my second husbands. Now when I look back, I'm like thinking, my God, Dina, you were like really controlling. So that's interesting, but I think I'm definitely less so now. Definitely. I don't give a damn about my saucepans. I'm like chilled about the saucepans, which is a good sign. But that was, like I said, I think when you're controlled for a long time in your life, it's very difficult to sort of have that freedom and be free. You've got to always kind of look for some way to control yourself. At least that's what it felt for a very long time.
You're talking to someone here who spent 2 hours at one time on holiday. I was on holiday in Eos.
Oh.
And I spent 2 hours listening to two cafe owners side by side, and they had that white line in the middle and the chairs are one side and the chairs. I spent 2 hours listening to two Greeks arguing about that line. Because every so often they have to let go. And that's how they let go. And it's just amazing just to listen to it, because they get fired up.
Exactly. Do you know what? This is it. I am very passionate. Like I said, even sometimes when I'm at the day job, let's say, and I'm in meetings, I'm the sort of person who will express myself. I have no problem in expressing myself. If I think something's not a good idea, then I will say it's a good idea. And of course, there are times when I get picked up on it. Oh, Dina, you should learn to, especially when you have your appraisal, your appraisal meetings, learn to control your feelings or your emotions, because emotions don't really happen that much here. Do you know what I mean? Especially within the work environment. But I'm like thinking, do you know what? I spent all my life, well, at least up until, the age of sort of 42, of trying to suppress my emotions and it wasn't okay to be me. Every time I tried to be free, especially within my teenage years. And like I said, it was weird for us, because for me as a child, I was very much a free spirit. But suddenly, when I became a woman, let's put it that way, that everything changed. And then suddenly I found, oh my God, what's happened to my freedom? And freedom is such an important thing for me. It's an important part of my life. And I thought, no, you're not pushing me down anymore. Definitely not pushing me down anymore. Yeah.
Now, I'm impressed with you've done well since, but you left school with 0 qualifications.
Oh, you've done your homework, haven't you?
So why, and what did it feel like? Because I remember a guy at school leaving to become a builder and was very successful, but he left school and they warned him not to, but he actually did really well. I'm just wondering, what happened at that time? Because I also noticed that you talk up Wendy and Richard because they believed in you. All right.
Wow, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I do, if I'm gonna talk to somebody, I want to know about them. So
Fantastic.
and that impresses me, because there are 3 things that impress me there. One is you left school with 0 qualifications, and I know you've done so much more since. 2 is you talk about Wendy and Richard. Now, usually there's a man or a woman. You've got a man and a woman there who believed in you. That's a nice balance. So I just want to hear a little bit about leaving school at 0 and what's it like to have, that sort of belief at that.
Well, do you know what? The leaving school, I would say kind of 0 qualifications, if you can call 2 GCSEs, 1 in drama and 1 in English, qualifications. I left school, I basically at that time decided that was it. I had enough. This goes back to growing up, because I felt I was living in a prison. It was, sorry, Mum and Dad, but that was how it is. That's how it was. And I just couldn't take it anymore. And my kind of refuge was school. So school's where I found my happiness. It was my escapism. But every time I went home, it was horrible. It was like a prison. It was horrible. At least that's how it felt for me. Now looking back, it may have not been so whatever. So leaving school was just because I decided I was going to go on holiday, and I left and went on holiday and never came back, which wasn't wise, because I left and went on holiday to Cyprus, which is like not the wisest thing you want to be doing. So yes. And then I always, like I said, I mentioned earlier in our conversation that I got married then. I was 21 when I got married the first time. And again, I was living in sin because I had a boyfriend and we weren't engaged. And so it was like, the family, it looks bad on the family. So yeah, I got married. I did. I believe I loved him and loved him very much. But then I realised I'm not. I just, because as soon as you got married, it was, so when are the children? Are you pregnant? You know, when you're going to have babies? And I just thought, well, you know what? That's not what I'm about. I want to do so much more. And that's when I was saying to you before that then I ended up, which was really interesting, because divorce at the time, now it's, you hear about it a lot, but at the time, I'm the first person in my family who got divorced. And the reason for that was because I said it to my dad, I want to do more. I don't want to just be, which is, I'm not like, you know, hooray for people that do, you know, people that do stay home, look after children, you know, that's fantastic, but it wasn't something for me. I wasn't that. So to cut a very long story short, where Wendy and Richard's come in, I then managed to get into Manchester University as a mature student. And I managed to do that because I remember I left school, so I had no idea how to write academic papers, had no idea about really anything in terms of academia. And so I thought, well, I want to go to university, and that was in my head, that was my goal. I want to do a proper teaching degree. And so I remember bought this book called J.J. Jordan's Academic Writing Course. And I taught myself to write academically. I then just devoured everything, even before I went to university, everything there was to do with English language teaching, because it's a huge, massive field. And then I got accepted as a mature student on the basis that I was really well prepared. And I guess I impressed them with my academic writing. And then I managed to get into university on like zero qualification, on nothing. And why Richard and Wendy, you know what? They saw in me, I feel like getting a bit emotional now, but they saw in me something that I, at that time, did not see in myself. They believed, yeah. And I would honestly say that they were, you know, just because for me, writing academic papers, it took forever to sit down and write, because like I said, for me it was my own training and how to write, and I always came back, which was crazy, I have to say, I always came back with really, really good grades, and I was always surprised. I was like, my God, how did that happen? I'm like thinking, is this like for real? Like they're seeing something in me that I couldn't see in myself.
Yeah.
So it always led me to work harder and to try and always, it was weird, proving to myself that I was worthy, so other people could see my worth, which was sad because I couldn't see it in myself. And they were just always there. They supported me throughout my time. They were great mentors. I've learned so much from them. They're incredible people. And they believed in me. Because, you know, when you grow up all the time, when you grow up and all you hear, rather, is that you're stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid, then you believe that you're stupid. And this is it. I just never thought I was good enough. Even when I was getting those firsts, you know, I just came out and thought, oh my God, really? How did that happen? I was always constantly trying to prove to myself, well, Dina, you are enough. But they always believed that I was. So that's really important.
You haven't actually erased it 100%, have you? That what they saw in you. Why is emotional, I think, is because you look back and think about it, and they saw it, and so there's an important time. It's an important thing that happened then when two people actually recognized in you something that you couldn't see in yourself. It's not surprising you get a bit emotional.
No, and I think, but then that becomes, because this is then kind of leads up, when you don't see it in yourself and you're constantly having to prove yourself. And I think for me, for a long time, like I said, it's all prior to the burnout. This is what I was going on.
That would lead to burnout, wouldn't it?
Exactly. Because I would be the one who would work not that little bit harder, oh my God, that so much harder than everybody else. So it wasn't 100%. For me, it was 200%. It had to be, and that comes, yeah.
I'll come back to that in a minute, but one of the things I picked up when I heard you say, you often talk to the third person.
Yeah.
And I was quite interested about that. And I wrote down at the time when I heard you say that, I must ask, but what about your child within? Who's that? If you're talking to the third, who's the child within? Because that's important to you too.
Yeah. I mean, there's always, the child is always there. And I love her and support her. And I also let her, it's interesting because for a long time she was running the show. Okay. And it can be difficult when that child within is running the show. So, you know, you've got to kind of you've got to hold her back and say, you know, who's boss. So, and I actually went through, it's interesting that you mentioned this, but I actually did this really good sort of like therapy, if you like, that helped kind of not control the child, but allow her to come out and play when it was time to play, but not always be present, because you can sabotage you in a lot of ways, especially when you're, in certain instances. So, but there's always the child within. And I think I've never, ever lost that. She's always there and she's always within me. When I talk about Dina in the third person, and I do that a lot, and I also do that a lot with my clients, I would say to people, you know, can you just step back and talk about that person? Because then you find that you have more compassion towards yourself when you look at yourself as another person. You know, when I started to, I would, you know, say, okay, think about what Dina's feeling. It somehow changed, the perspective changed within. That's why I refer to myself, because like you wouldn't treat a person the way that you treat yourself many a time. Do you see what I mean? We can be our harshest judges. We could be so harmful to ourselves, also having come through my eating disorders, my self-harm, whatever. I've been through it. And then, but you only do it because you're doing it yourself. But when you step out of it and you say, okay, what are you doing to Dina? Then you find yourself being, like I said, more compassionate towards yourself. So I encourage it. You know, I encourage it because sometimes we forget that we're here in a physical plane, if you like, and we're in this wonderful body of ours, but at least we need to be fully compassionate and also in love with ourselves. And I think that's just so important. That's what I'll talk about Dina in the third person a lot.
When I talk to you, you're not doing it today, but what you do is you look up here. You don't look over there. Occasionally you look one side, but mostly up because stuff's going. However, what I noticed in the video at one point before was you go somewhere. You actually close your eyes.
Yeah, I do that a lot, don't I?
Where are you going?
I do that a lot. Do you know what? Because sometimes when I look back at interviews or things, I'm like, Dina, what is it with closing? Do you know what? I'm doing it now. Okay, stop.
I haven't done it while we've been talking. I'll tell you that you haven't. You've been very open and clear. But sometimes you go somewhere, and I had a similar with somebody else the other day, because I know that a lot of people know where they've gone. So I'm not, hopefully not being nosy. I just wanted to know where you've gone. And
it's just, God, okay. Well, I hope this doesn't sound a bit, but when I talk, a lot of the time, it's a weird one, Liz, where I go, okay, I'm here, but there were just times when I lose my physical self, or it's just that extra, I make that extra connection. It's also, like sometimes, you know, when you talked about, I look up a lot, and I'm like, sometimes I feel like a lot of it, if you watch, I do a lot of Facebook lives, and I do a lot of running thoughts, because when I'm out on my runs, I suddenly get inspired, and I call them my downloads.
Yes.
And just, and it really feels like it's a download. It's just like something that's coming down to me, and that I feel that I want to talk about. But I don't usually plan things, and even now, it's just things that come through me. And I think the closing of the eyes, for me, it just makes that connection stronger. It connects within. It really does help me connect so much, let's say, with myself, with my inner self. When I close my eyes, it's just that connection. And I think that's important. And also the looking up, like I said, especially you see me on my Facebook lives, I talk about these downloads. I just feel there's just a filtering of information that's just coming out.
Well, I told people lately that most of the questions that I ask people come when I'm in the shower. So I have a shower with all my guests in the morning, and the stuff just comes. And sometimes it's very strong. You know, you've got to ask this question, you've got to ask that question.
You've asked lovely questions. Oh, well, this is, I must say. But, and they're good questions in the sense they make you really think. Because otherwise I'm kind of like, wow, right, okay, that's an interesting question. No one's really asked me that before. So I appreciate your questions.
Well, I hope it's, I mean, I run workshops on communication, but I hope it's because I think for me, it's like, it's an interesting experience. I've enjoyed every one I've done so far on this latest session, everyone. And I've met a different person every time. And it's fantastic. And I enjoy it. I mean, to be honest, I enjoy it. Now, what's your inner strength?
Whoa, gosh, my inner strength. Oh, gosh, that's a good question. What's my inner strength?
You've got it. You've got that strong power. And part of burnout is not knowing how to use it. So now you've learned about burnout, you now can use that energy in a more positive way. But what is it? What is it? You know, I don't know if you know what it is or whether you can describe it, but I'm just interested is what is that inner strength? What do you think it is yourself?
Do you know what? That inner strength, it used to be like the survival instinct kind of thing, but it's not. It's this feeling that I'm on this mission. It's like I feel like I'm here to do so much more, and I think it's not wanting. It's the drive, as in not wanting to leave this life, because I don't want to come back again. Because I've been here. I've been in too many lives. So for me, what drives me now is knowing that I have found whatever it was I was supposed to be learning. And I strongly believe, I know this may sound a bit whatever to whoever's listening, but this is how I feel. And I just believe that I now going to go up and get my wings, and I'm not going to have to come back anymore, because it just becomes very tiresome when you keep coming back and having to do certain things and learn certain things. So what is driving me is knowing that I am here now, and I've always had this, oh gosh, the curiosity and the passion and the instinct to just make change drives, wanted to change things, wanted to help other people changing, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one. But just knowing that this is it now, I don't know. And I just know that I'm here to do whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing.
That's fair enough. That's tell us about your words, finding success within ourselves.
Yeah, and that's it. The finding success within ourselves. Like I said, for a very long time, I didn't feel successful within. And when I talk about that because I feel that for a lot of people, I mean, you see it out in the world, a lot of well-established people, where we're talking about famous people that are doing so well externally, at least they appear they're doing so well with their external successes, okay? So whether it's the big house, the flash car, the great career, but then if you're not, and this is what I always say, but if you're not successful within, so if you don't have this inner success, then whatever is external, it just it's not going to be worth anything. It's not going to have any significance because you yourself are not happy with it. And then you can see what that can possibly result in. I mean, a lot of people either committing suicide, having breakdowns, and there are a lot of situations like that. I mean, we've, like I said, I've mentioned this, and who was it the other day? Was it last week? Was it a singer? Was it Demi Lovato? You know, found out, you know, she, with her addictions, people committing suicide, you know, that all on the outside it appears fantastic. We all want to have that life. But unless you clear up the messes and the incompletes that are going on within, forget it. You can gain so much more. You could be even more successful externally, but everything will still come and haunt you. So it's really important to be, yeah, like I said, to build that inner success for that external success to be able to enjoy it and live it, you know.
I 100% agree with you. When I hit the perfect golf ball, it's that second. I can't explain what it was like to anybody. I know it's not going to last, and there's no point in trying to hang on to it. It's just enjoying each of those moments. If you bought me a Ferrari car, it wouldn't last much longer than that golf shot, because it never lasts unless you feel it inside, unless you really have it in here. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Now, solo walking across Switzerland. Oh, is there a better place to walk across? I mean, I once years ago went over the border and back to Austria like that, like a yo-yo once, just because all these beautiful lakes and everything around there, and it's beautiful. But walking across Switzerland, now, a lot of people used to escape from Austria through through Switzerland. Now, when you conjure up walking, which has got to be 150k or whatever it was, are you talking about up hills and down hills?
No. There were a few hills, but I didn't do up the mountains. It was basically from Schwarzenberg, which is sort of Canton Bern. So it was sort of walking from this end. So basically that's what it's like, all the way down here, which is like Lake Geneva. So what I did was, it was 170 kilometers, and it was part of the Pilgrim's Way, so St. James's Way, the famous one that starts from Spain and goes through all Europe, etc. So I did the part. It's amazing, and that was and I still want to walk from like right down to Spain, but last year I did that stage, so from Schwarzenberg right down to Lake Geneva. And I had the first day I was with a friend the first day and a half, we were together, and then I continued on my own. It was such an amazing experience because, yeah, I mean, I was walking sort of 25k a day, more or less, but just being on your own.
So was it German, the part that you started in?
Oh, I started in the German part and ended up in the French part, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I did that because, you see, again, it all comes back to, I just finished, well, about 3 or 4 weeks before, I just finished reading I Am Malala, you know, the same, yeah, and I just finished reading that. And also there was this thing about girls' education, because I'm very passionate also about education and girls' education.
The very next thing, don't jump.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I was going to connect those two.
Okay, go into it. And my next thing was so passionate about girls' education.
Yeah, because that's exactly why I did it. Because I am, my sister also went to college, but I guess I am the first woman, like girl of my family to have gone to university. My Mum never ever went to school, never had an education, as in a school education. My mum was a highly intelligent woman, you know, it doesn't mean that, you know, but she never had a school education. She was always supposed to go to primary school, but it just never happened.
Are you all right? Are you all
Sorry?
right? Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
And so my mum's never went to school. My grandmother never went to school. So basically you can imagine all the women on my mum's side never had an education. And after reading like Malala's story, it just hit home to think, do you know what? This is like the 21st century, and we still hear stories like this. We're still hearing stories around the world about women and girls not having an education. I mean, look, was it in Nigeria? I can't remember which African country it was, where they kidnapped the girls, over 200 girls, and kidnapped, you know, and it's happening every day, and it's things that we're not hearing on the news, the things they talk about. I mean, I rarely watch the news, but this is happening every day.
Oh, yes.
Women, girls are not having an education. And I strongly believe with all my heart that, sounds me now, there's a fear that when we educate women, that perhaps something great is going to happen to the world, that perhaps something amazing is going to happen, that we're going to bring. So we need that feminine energy. Hence the reason why women were oppressed, women going back in the Middle Ages were accused of being witches and burnt at the stake. Hence the reason, I know you're going to get me, you got me on one, Lance, I would be, but you know, hence the reason why women were constantly throughout history. It's because we know that with women in more leadership roles, gosh, what, you know, I can imagine this world will be amazing. Do you know what? So what do? We keep women out of school, you know, girls out of schools, where we've got perhaps our future leaders that are in this little village somewhere in Africa or wherever it is in the world, but not having the opportunity to give them an education. Look at what happened to Malala, and how many Malalas are there? Do you know how many girls, you know?
I interviewed Alan Rains from Uganda, who spent a horrific time on the streets as a kid. He was in jail and into drugs and everything. And he's now helping street kids and particularly women. And the way he showed, there was a picture on, I can't remember, it was on Facebook recently, it might have been in the speakers group, I can't remember which one, of this little girl that he's helping out and all these people. And it's like, it's, you know, going back, there's so many people now going back and putting something back. I mean, he had a life, he's still, you know, he missed out on a whole life, and he's now back in helping other people because he doesn't want them to have the sort of life that he had. He doesn't want someone to grow up being called bastard every 5 seconds from every person around him. Yeah, so yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. My pet thing is teaching children. Actually, let me tell you, I've just been to the supermarket. I was pretty safe. There were 7 police cars, and there was a lot of school children who should have been in school. Okay, and one of the kids was on the ground in handcuffs. Oh, no. And their school is just over the road. Why they weren't at school? And they've been building up. They were going to steal in this Chinese veggie shop, and the policeman came in while I was in there shopping, and I said to him, "What happened?" He said, "I said it must be tough for you guys," and he said, "Yeah, I got this kid outside, and you have to be so precious." And that, I think, is a major issue today. We are too precious. We don't discipline the way they should be disciplined. I don't mean whipping them or smacking them or whatever, but they don't learn responsibility. And I mean, you would see their faces. They didn't care. You know, there's all these police around. They didn't care, you know. No. And it was me.
And I think, you know, sometimes we have this discussion, because I have to say, I did grow up with the, in the Greek Cypriot way. So I don't know if it was, but I did get beaten and etc., you know, and it's not to say that I encourage that, absolutely not. But I think perhaps we are too overprotective today, and we're not teaching kids about responsibility. We're not teaching kids about consequences of your actions. And I think that, exactly. And that is just so important, and we're just missing it. And it's really weird, but yes, we are in the 21st century, but still very much so today, the way that education systems are run. We're still very much in the 19th century. We're still very much in the industrial revolutionized type of way of thinking and teaching. We've got to change. We've got to change that as well.
If we want to survive and grow, yes, we have. I took this down. I'll read this out to you. Dina recently took the main stage at TEDx Basel with her message about burnout and how forging a relationship with your sofa is pivotal in becoming a more inner balanced, happy, high achiever. It's about having the courage to listen before burnout. The final wake-up call forces you to. She strongly believes that burnout happens for a reason. The current mission is to help others discover why. Taking the positive effects of burnout, she helps others go through from burnout to brilliance through a corporate speaking engagement, group training, one-to-one mentoring program. So my question, first of all, I'll show you something. I know people, whenever you saw them, they were always busy. Whenever you say, how are you going? You got time for a coffee? No, too busy. And they never hear themselves. Their life is the same statement, self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm too beginning. Is that right? Burnout. Does it? I did listen to your little promo video as well, which you were very powerful and strong in that. So that's really good. Burnout, does it begin from not listening or listening to the wrong information?
Not listening. Do you know, not listening, because you always know, whether you call it your higher self, you always know where it is you're supposed to be going and what it is you're supposed to be doing. We all have that inner, we all have this intuition. We're all born with this great ability and the capacity to be able to listen to ourselves, to really connect. Unfortunately, children have it to about the age of 3, but once, or 3 or 4, and once you start going to school, it's kind of taken out of you. The voice is always there. Your inner guidance is always there. And I just believe that it's when we don't listen, truly listen. We know when something is, again, it's a perception. You perceive something as being good or bad, or a choice that you have. We often know what we should be doing, but we just don't want to take it because of different fears that we may have, to actually say, okay, I will decide. It might be just uncomfortable, whether it's leaving that relationship, whether it's leaving that job, whether it's just packing your bags and going off to another country or whatever. But we think of the consequences and the cost of that. So for a lot of people, especially amongst high achievers, and I've met a few high achievers, and especially like, so when I did my TED talk, they're in these positions in these massive big companies, and because they've built themselves up to fulfill a certain role, they might just want, they just might want to be an artist. But oh no, they're in this managerial position now. So they're not, you're not listening to yourself. You find that you are doing something because that's what society or that's what your family expects you to be doing. So you may be moving unhappily along and just doing it for the sake of doing it. But there are certain things in your life that do come around. I think for me, I never really listened. I listened, but then I would go back and repeat whatever it was. I never learnt the lessons. And you can do that by just working harder, working longer. That's why I say to people, burnout isn't just about work. It really isn't just about work, because when I burnt out, there was a lot of crap that was going on in my personal life. Work for me was like school was when I was a teen. It was a way to escape, but I didn't know my limits. I didn't know when to stop and when to say no. So it's a mixture of so many different things. So it does happen for a reason. I absolutely strongly believe that with all my heart. And if you're not willing to listen, burnout will force you to listen, because you're physically, mentally and spiritually is when you literally have just collapsed. You've got nothing left to give. Literally the flame, it's gone out. And then you've got to stop and you've got to listen and you've got to say, do you know what is the change I need to be making? And face it, because yes, it's going to be uncomfortable, but whatever that may be, maybe it's staying in that job, but it might not be job related. It might be, like I said, something related to you on a personal level. But burnout does, and it will force you to stop and listen. And I'm grateful for it. I am. I am.
While I was listening to you the other day, and also somebody else, a question came up for me, but I feel obliged to share for people who are listening, people who see me posting on stuff. A lot of people think I'm negative or whatever, but I'm not. I'm actually a very positive person. And what I'm doing all the time, and there are reasons from the past why I do this, is I question things. I look to see where I can add value, and my questions are about adding value. And if people hear them, they'll see that is, and then maybe they'll respond in that way. But a lot of people want to get on the attack and so forth. And that's, it saddens me, but that's because that's not me. That's not who I am. I actually do care about people. I do want to support them in whatever they can do. Now, the question that came up from me, and you're going to laugh when you hear this, maybe not. How do you know if your gut is saying yes or no?
Oh God. Do you know what? You asked me about my strength earlier, and I'm telling you, I know. Do you know what? I can tell you. There are certain things you can do. There's the body sway test. If you want to check that, you know, some people might not be able to trust their inner feelings. So to check that, you could actually do a body sway test. So you find out what your yes is and you no is. You can ask yourself a question and you can see where your body sways. If you can't trust within. For me, oh my gosh, Lance, I have to say, if that's my superpower, is that gut feeling. Oh God, I know when something's bad. I just know it. It's that different, you know, that kind of, you know, you've got the happy butterfly feeling, you know, it's a good feeling. And then you've got that sudden gutsy, churning, sicky, yucky feeling. That's how I can describe it. You can absolutely tell the difference between the two. There's that feeling of elation in one, and that's that feeling of dread in the other one. And I've got to be totally honest, this is what I'm saying. Call it my faith, call it my whatever, my gut feeling, my higher self, God, whatever. It's never really let me down. It's just that I refuse to listen to it on a lot of occasions. But I have to say, many occasions, but even in my relationships, I was never kind of, always my gut feeling would tell me, Dina, something's not right here. Check this out, do that out. But it's always there. You can definitely tell that feeling, connect with it. And I think one way of helping people to connect with that inner feeling is also through meditation, is also being able to identify and use simple things. That's what I was kind of like, ask yourself simple questions that you know are true for yourself, and see what sort of feeling comes up. You can see I'm just touching myself here now, but you can feel what feeling comes up. It's the solar plexus feeling. It's here, it's in there, and you can absolutely feel it. Absolutely feel it.
So, how much is Jack Canfield part of what you do? Is that just something that you've got is a part of, or is it something that monopolize? How is?
Do you know what? For a very, very long time, it was a part of me that I didn't want to expose, because a lot of the time people would think I was doolally, because I would, even as a child, like I said, I was a very sensitive child, very imaginative child. I'll see things perhaps other people couldn't see, and experience things that other people couldn't experience. In terms of how I use, I like to call it the superpower. So how I use my superpower, and I think everybody, I think this would be something that kids should be taught at school, and how to be able to tune into themselves, because it will help them a lot in certain things, you know, because we all have that ability. But working with people, I think that's a gift that I have, is because I work with people, especially within my group training. So it could be that I'm in a room, if I'm giving training, it could be 25 people, depending. It could be an audience of 200. But I have the ability to connect with each person as an individual. And I think that's very much based on, I'm very good at sensing people and feeling people's energy levels. So that's how I use it in my daily life, is that I have that good connection with people. It helps me suss out people, if you like, and that's a good thing.
Okay, we better wind up shortly. So just some quickies. This is a trick. This is a naughty question I'm asking you now. Would you, because you believe in fitness and everything else, would you recommend running to everybody?
For your mental health, absolutely. That's why I started running. That was my antidepressant. You know, it was all very well when I was going through certain things. People were always trying to push the drugs on me. How about you take this sleeping pill? How about you try this antidepressant? And I was like, I don't want pills. I'm going to find another way to battle this, to get through this. And for me, it was running. So for me, it's not so much the fitness level. That's great. You know, the whole fitness thing, that's an added bonus. But if I don't go running, it's just not good for my head. So that's why I would recommend running to everybody. Not like, you know, fast running. It's not that I go.
That's a good answer. Why? Because I got a heart problem. So recommending running to me is probably not a wise thing.
Yeah.
So you pick that up. There's horses for courses, and I think a lot of coaches need to learn there are horses for courses. But I'd love to have got more into that with you, but we can't for time. Now, just quickly, an hour of meditation?
Depending. I meditate every day. At least when I do every day, it's about 20-25 minutes. When I have, but there are times when I do go into my hours. But that could be like maybe once or twice a month. But I try and meditate every single day. There's not a day that goes by.
Mantras, quiet, what type?
It depends really what I kind of think, but there's times when it's quiet meditation, running meditations. Even when I'm out running, I meditate. At the moment, I'm doing a 21-day one with Deepak Chopra and Oprah Winfrey on manifestation. So I'm doing that, and I love those. But it really depends on what it is I'm focusing on and what I need. And sometimes guided meditations. But for me, the quiet meditations, only because it just brings you up to that different level.
You know what works. I mean, the main thing is doing it. Quickly, two questions. One between a number between 1 and 67.
52. Oh my God.
Hey, that came up. Oh no, it hasn't. What don't you know that you don't know?
Oh my God, this is like early morning. What don't I know? What don't I know that I don't know?
Yes.
What don't I know that I don't know? Oh God, how do I answer that? What do I don't know that I don't know?
Difficulty.
Sorry?
With difficulty. It's an interesting question.
I don't know that I don't know.
Because
you know what? There's always something to know.
Exactly. We know that much.
Yeah.
What we don't know is this big. So you're never going to know everything in your life. Right. But is there anything that you don't know that you don't know? Anything specific?
God.
Big question, isn't it?
That's a question. Exactly. That's like a massive, like, I mean, put it this way, I never ever stop learning because I always feel there's so much to know. And if I could learn everything there was ever to learn, or to find out everything, then gosh, because I'm constantly learning. So there's so much.
Here's an answer for you. I'll get you out of it. One thing you don't know is what you're capable of.
But you know what? I know that's something, yeah. But then you say, but I know that I am capable of so much.
There's so much more.
Yeah.
How could you know? But it's probably about the biggest question you could get. So try another number.
Oh yeah, that's a different. How about 21?
And I happen to have that, and that's a nice one to finish off with. What's one of your favorite songs or tunes?
Oh my gosh. Okay, it has to be Survivor by Beyonce. That was my anthem. So that is definitely up there with my favorites.
Can you sing it?
Yeah, I'm a survivor. No, you just do it. Survive. I'm going to survive because I keep on surviving. I'm a survivor. Keep on surviving. That was my song for a very long time. Yeah.
Okay, before I sign off, this is your chance. Promo. Dina, promo.
Great. Okay, so good. So my program is Burnout to Brilliance, and like I said, I strongly believe that burnout happens for a reason, and my mission is to help you discover why. So simply, it's about helping people listen to where it is they're supposed to be going, whether it is within your professional and your personal life. It's also helping not just with individuals, but it's also helping corporations also tune in and find out, because it's happening more and more. There's so many people within companies who are going through burnout. So helping corporations, provide them with training to support their people to flourish, because without your people flourishing, your corporation isn't going to flourish either. So it's about helping others to move forward and to find out and discover why burnout is happening. And it's a good thing. That's another thing. It's the positive effects of burnout.
Fabulous. And if anybody's wondering why I keep looking up there, it's because I want to make sure it's still recording.
Is it recording? Yeah, it is.
Still recording. Okay. Are you recording your end as well, or not? Or...
No, I'm not, because I can't record it mind, or can I? No, I
don't think you can record it in the cloud or homes. Yeah. Okay. So my name's Lance Best, Auckland, New Zealand. I've been talking this morning with Dina Blanco, transformational speaker, educator, teacher, trainer, and coach, and co-author and founder of Lessons in Self. Now, I'm always an advocate. When you go for a coach, make sure you connect and relate to them. And I think you can see we have an authentic lady here who's quite strong and knows her topic. So let's give her the pass. And if you are looking at burnout, or you know someone that is, get in touch with Dina.
Fantastic.
And as usual, the last word goes to Dina.
My last words. I just want to say thank you so much. I'm so grateful and appreciative of you, Lance, for inviting me this morning. It was an early start for me, but I also just want to say thank you for asking the questions that maybe other people don't tend to ask, because it really was food for thought for me, and also helped me really look into myself and start questioning those of my own self. So just thank you very much for having me, really. Thank you.